Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines. From the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. Heroes here. Gregg Rosenthal, Mark Sessler. Right before we started, Gregg asking about the meaning of love and life through the lyrics of Irish singer-songwriter Hozier.
Yeah, it was a great conversation we had with Gregg. I think that
one of many celebrities on hand. I missed the end of the Sunday night show to go to Bono of U2's like one-man show / concert. Brad Pitt was right in my orbit. Brad Pitt, Mark.
Yeah. I mean,
I felt guilty because that's your crush. That's your one true, like, free pass, get out of jail free celebrity. And what am I doing right next to him? Looking handsome as hell, by the way.
Well, I mean, I got to, dish on the fading Justin Herbert Chargers offense, who faded away against the Niners. So I think we know who won that.
It's like, we try to get Mark upset about not having his guy. The processing has not returned. Slow. He doesn't really seem to care that much because Brad Pitt is his guy. That's got to bother him.
By the way, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, why did Gregg and I showed up in sort of black overcoats with dark undershirts, and we look like a pair of like low-grade.
They're quite different, though.
You know what it looks like?
It's like we're like low-grade robbers next to Dan, who probably's running the heist.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a nice new suit. Is that the custom-made suit?
Yes, I look like a TV game show host, and you guys look like the guys behind the scenes that run around and set things up.
We're the grips. We're the grips. The gaffers.
Which is kind of a cool setup that I think maybe we should stick with going forward.
Okay, great.
I don't mind it. Good show. How exciting is this?
That's the new suit, though, right? That's the NFL-provided suit. It's a first, and it's a big step in our
Here's the problem.
Status at this company.
And it is. Who are we to complain about anything? I mean,
we should not complain about
that. We're fortunate for everything we have
Yes.
at this company. They give us this platform, and they pay us to do it. And yet, when they gave us a suit, they misspelled my last name. Ooh. Which puts me Hazus.
Oh no,
Dan Hanzus.
Oh no.
And I wonder, Jesus. I wonder.
That's your new nickname.
I was like, should I tell them?
No.
Well, you just told them. No. You've essentially just told everyone.
Jesus. Maybe I could go into the stable of nicknames.
I didn't even know our names are in there. I gotta check that out. If I get 50% G, you better believe I'm telling her.
That's your brand. Nobody messes with Gregg's brand.
1 to 10, how steamed were you to find out that your name is misspelled inside this tailored suit?
I was perturbed, mildly perturbed. I'd put it at a 6. But 7 is when I would definitely tell somebody. So it's like...
you're on the borderline.
It is kind of a perfect Hanzus storyline here because it's like we have... Mm-hmm. grown at this company. We love our roles, but I think there's still part of that newsroom Dan in there that's like, they don't still respect us.
You need that.
like to the top, that edge, and that's like a good example.
The second, not all of us came into the company with a silver spoon in our mouth like Rosenthal. Yeah. Some of us, like Mark and I, had to work our way up the ranks and come from nothing.
Right, from 3 days a week, making what a high schooler would make working at a fast food outery.
And you know what, Mark? The second newsroom Mark and newsroom Dan exit the picture, this whole thing is done.
It crumbles.
You need those guys.
Those guys are gone.
As I wear my tailored suit, my fancy little misspelled name. All right, let's get into it. I'm excited for today's show. I truly am, because Mark Sanchez will be joining us, the Fox color man, former Jets quarterback, amongst other teams. Here's a quiz.
Mark with a K.
Yeah, to test your, we always say it now, a little bit of navel-gazing, the ATN era to 2013 to present. Name, without looking it up, name every team that Mark Sanchez played for in his 8-year career.
Jets, Eagles.
Ding, ding.
Bills.
Gravert. First of all.
Yeah, you're not involved in this.
I want to play.
Wait, first of all, you can't even. You're missing so many things here, including the right answer.
He wasn't on the Bills?
But, Justin. No.
Okay.
Was he on the Bears briefly?
All NFC East. Everywhere but the Giants he played. And the Jets.
Wow. Right. Okay.
Just sort of felt like a Bears quarterback.
Yeah. I don't recall the Washington portion of his career.
Yeah, now I remember he sort of came out of retirement, basically, for that Washington
What
run.
a moment. What a moment.
Exciting.
We will not be asking him, Mark Sanchez, about his Washington Redskins days, but we will get to all the other things around Sanchez, who's been one of our favorite aspects of the broadcasting world in the NFL this season. In fact, we're also going to get into our favorite Sunday broadcasters of the season. We're also going to preview a very good Thursday night football game. Thankfully, not only did the Packers come back and take a lock from you guys, which was nice, they also made this Thursday night game way more compelling by getting off the mat against Dallas. So we got Tennessee at Green Bay. We'll talk about that. But before that, let's get caught up on all the news. Hit it, Justin.
Wow, he almost got his head taken off. Jesus Christ. He got really lucky there.
He did it again. Jonathan Vilma. Speaking of color commentators, who we like, Justin, he's dropping JC every game. You have to imagine when he screamed it during the Atlanta game, there had to be somebody that came up to him and be like, hey, just tighten it up with that.
I think we're the only people that noticed.
No, you
Kenny
know why?
Albert liked it.
You know why I know that? Because Andrew Siciliano, Mr. Red Zone himself, right? He said to me, we were talking commentators in the newsroom before we came on today, and he said, oh, did you hear what he said, Jonathan Vilma said? People are street talking.
I think it's out there. And then Kenny leaves Kenny Albert in a strange place with some of his comments, and I enjoy that quite a bit.
All right, let's get into the news. We'll start with, one of the real disappointments of the NFL season is the defending champion Los Angeles Rams, who are going down in flames, it feels like. And now, on top of it, they lose arguably their best player, certainly on offense. The Rams place Cooper Kupp on injured reserve with what's been labeled a high ankle sprain, but it's a high ankle sprain that's serious enough that he's going to have surgery scheduled for Wednesday. And you do the math. What is their record? They're 3-6?
3-6.
3-6. If best case scenario, you figure the Rams without Kupp are getting out of the next 4 games, and that, they get maybe 2 wins. By the time he's even eligible to come back, if he's feeling good enough to come back, you wonder if they'll just keep him where he is and see you next September.
I mean, that might just be the wise move at this point. I mean, you think about the Bucs game, for instance. What was the only big play the Rams had? It was Cooper Kupp. You look at their stats over the season, Cooper Kupp is essentially all they have on offense. They already couldn't run the ball. I mean, Allen Robinson has been a vast disappointment after all the summertime ballyhooed commentary about how great he fit in the offense. It's just never been the case. So is he going to step up? There's no evidence that's the case. Matthew Stafford is still in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
And I think I start to wonder what you do with Matthew Stafford in this season if it continues to spiral down the drain.
Well, you play him if he's healthy enough to play, but I found it very odd when reporters asked Sean McVay if Stafford suffered a concussion, and he didn't give a straight answer. And he said, well, we hope to have more clarity on that this afternoon. He's been in the protocol for a week, so he's just not answering the question, and I can't think of any motivation not to answer that question, so I'm not going to speculate, but it's just strange. He was added late week, and this Kupp injury is so disappointing because they're the worst offense in the league EPA per play, the Rams. And you can't say that's on John Wolford because they were the same offense with Matthew Stafford.
It's not just on Allen Robinson either.
No.
This has been a team-wide meltdown.
Yeah.
Quarterback, offensive line, scheme, personnel.
Coach.
And normally you would think in this spot, well, the Rams this season is lost. And, yeah, you let Kupp get healthy, probably don't bring him back. Stafford's on the list. Make sure you absolutely prioritize his health over everything else. And if you happen to get a high draft pick, out of it, a higher draft pick.
I mean, they've
great.
sold all their draft picks.
But they don't have the draft pick. It's the Detroit Lions, the team of ATL.
And we're not going to sing the whole song right now.
Right, it almost feels wrong now
whoa.
looking at the Cooper Kupp injury news and celebrating. But the Rams pick, I would guess, will be higher in the draft than the Lions pick. If I had to pick which team's going to win more games, they both have 3 wins so far. I think the Lions will win more games the rest of the season.
Someone had a tweet last week after another disappointing Rams game where they said the Rams bought their Super Bowl title on credit, and now the bill has come due. Certainly kind of feels that way.
And I think if you were the Lions, if you were managing your expectations for the draft picks you're going to get from the Rams, you'd be safely thinking, 5 or 6 towards the bottom of the whole draft list. Instead, it could be reversed. That is a massive fortune for
And it's
Detroit.
a better quarterback draft. They're going to have 2 picks, towards the top. It is great news for them. And I think when you mention credit, I think the Rams have really been hurt by the injuries this year. But that's part of the credit. They were one of the least injured teams in the NFL. That's just happened to happen. That helps teams win Super Bowls all the time, and they got a little fortunate there. And they've gotten all the bad fortune that they can get this year.
Well, that said, would you rather be the Panthers? Like, we didn't sell anything on credit, blah, blah, blah.
No.
And we're buried in
They
the
can return
netherworld.
strong. Like, it doesn't mean it has to be a multi-year thing.
No.
But for this year, they're done.
But yeah, it does seem that way. If you're going to make a list of the most disappointing teams in football, Raiders,
long
Rams
list.
could be 1-2 potentially. I mean, it's that bad. The Raiders spent big and paid a big price to get Davante Adams, which at the time was painted as like a final piece of the puzzle type situation for a team that was ready to contend for the AFC West title. Instead, they're 2-7. Mark Davis, the owner, spoke to Paul Gutierrez of ESPN and dismissed any questions about Josh McDaniels' job security. Davis said Rome was not built in a day. He also said this: people in today's world want instant gratification. The guys coached 9 games. We're 2-7. Not the results we're looking for, but at the same time, we've lost 6 one-score games with the ball and a chance to win at the end. My issue with this, Mark Sessler, when you say Rome was not built in a day, you make it sound like you are a team that's building from the ground up, like the Lions or the Texans or so many other teams that are just trying to start over. That was not what the baseline was. This was a 10-win team that went to the playoffs last year. There's got to be some ownership about how truly bad this season has been.
Yeah, I mean, I think
ownership from ownership.
Ownership from ownership. Like, you want to give, I think, a new GM and coaching staff, by year 3, the vision should have arrived. You should be real close, especially with the Raiders, who were already a playoff team. So it should have been even sooner. I think the Raiders are a different team, though, than some of these super money-rich operations where you could fire a coach after one season and pay him for the next 3 or 4. I just think that's a little bit of a different thing. And if you're Mark Davis, maybe you're having all these chats with Josh McDaniels behind the scene. Maybe you do buy in more than the fans are buying in right now to what he says they can do.
Mark Davis said to this media member, "I think he's doing a fantastic job."
Which is protests too much because the GM just said that a week ago, and it's like, well, none of us see it.
Right. They asked him, like, why would you do that? He's like, why wouldn't I be keeping him? I guess I appreciate Mark
John Gruden's
Davis
loving this somewhere,
recognizing that, look, it's his decision. Anytime you fire a coach after the first year, owners should be embarrassed because it's them taking a huge L. Urban Meyer that hire is completely on Jaguars ownership. Like, Urban Meyer took all the heat, but ownership deserves it more. They've been so close, the Raiders, that I don't think it's crazy to try to see this out for a year or 2. But now the speculation has already started. Okay, well, who does take the axe? And there's an article, Tayshaun Reed in the Athletic, who's wondering, is it going to be Derek Carr who ultimately gets the blame? Because whether it's Derek Carr's fault or not, and overall it's not his fault, he and Josh McDaniels are not a good match so far. He's having his worst year, I would say, since 2017, which was the year after he suffered that injury where he really came back to earth. And this is he's a veteran quarterback who's having his worst year in 5 years.
If I wanted to make an argument for the Raiders and what maybe Josh McDaniels is saying behind the scenes, outside of that no-show in New Orleans, every one of their losses have been one-score games. The other 6. I mean, I'm not saying they look close, so they are close. But Derek Carr's contract, to your point, you can get out of that without problems after this season. And that's why I think it was constructed as such.
You could get a nice pick for Derek Carr.
I was going to say, can't you don't have to squint too much to imagine a scenario where the Derek Carr is traded in the offseason. He is the GOAT that gets sacrificed for this. They draft a young quarterback. The team is struggling again next year, and then all of a sudden Davante Adams is being moved at the deadline, and this team is blowing things up. I think it might be closer to that than this team quickly turning things around.
I'm glad you brought up the deadline, and that would be interesting. I think your Jets might be interested in a guy like Derek Carr.
Oh, it's on my radar.
Yeah.
You've been talking about
I think
that.
this next couple of months is very interesting
Would
and
you
important
be?
for the quarterback there.
Would you be
Yeah,
interested in
I
Derek
would.
Carr?
I think Derek Carr, I don't think he is a top flight player, but I think Derek Carr is exactly the type of guy that would stabilize a position. And if you're not looking for a guy to be your savior, you're just looking for a good, steady quarterback.
They could win some playoff
I
games
think
right
he's
now
a
with
guy
Derek
for that.
Carr.
Yep.
I think he's a good pick for that.
I'm glad you brought up the deadline, though. I was texting with Ian Rapport. I know you're concerned. You were concerned about our friendship.
I was more than concerned. I thought it was over. Did you say friendship? You're not friends.
Things
Yeah, I
go
don't know
up
if you-
and down.
I don't know
Your
if you have a
relationship.
friendship, but yeah.
You know, we were
Friendship's
texting though, and I it's really a strong
Any
take
personal?
of mine.
Any personal, like back and forth, or is it all football?
It's mostly football.
What is the percentage of times that Ian starts the text thread?
Ooh, that's a good
That's an
question.
amazing
Probably not
question.
many. Probably not many.
That
But,
that's
here and
telling.
There. Here and there.
But go ahead,
I would. It depends. It's changed over
Mark,
depending
with
on the
a
time of
great
year.
question. One of those all timers.
That's
Well,
why he's a true journalist.
I
He
was
is.
curious. I was simply curious, asking the question that I'm
I think it
curious to know
says
the
a
answer
lot.
to.
But yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Trade
He's a top 10
deadline.
football insider.
Trade deadline needs to be moved back 2 weeks. Do you know what a difference 2 weeks would make, or 3 weeks? What would change? Do you know how many teams that weren't selling at the deadline 2 weeks ago that would
Yeah.
be selling up until next week? The Raiders, I would throw in there. The Saints, I heard some word that they weren't willing to move off of Marcus Davenport. You think they would like some picks for Marcus Davenport right
Yes.
now? Every other sport does it about 2/3 or
What is the
3/5 into
case
the season.
against it?
I don't know. And what Ian said was like, oh yeah, GMs.
It's happening.
People are all. I don't know if it's happening. They wish, but that's like GMs wish it was happening, and they've wanted this to happen maybe for a while. So maybe it's not going
happening.
to happen, but they think it's
in
going
the
to
next
happen.
2 years. It's happening.
I think
Okay,
because
let's
it's
make it
become,
happen.
it's become
Yeah.
another
We can have that
tentpole
influence.
event.
In other news, more disappointing teams. The Carolina Panthers. They're disappointed that the Baker Mayfield move did not work out for them. He played poorly. He got hurt. P.J. Walker assumed the starting job. Did okay on balance. Okay, he's a little strong, but we're being nice here. But now he has a high ankle sprain. He is out for Week 11 against the Ravens. So it's Baker back in the lineup. And what I think, Mark, your boy from the Cleveland days, is a very important opportunity for Baker to audition himself in the league, in our league that might see him as a little bit of not worth the trouble. I think he's got to perform a little bit this year to, I'm not going to say keep himself in the league, but maybe I kind of am saying that.
I mean,
Ooh.
I could see him. I think his starting days, unless the team was
Yeah, I'm
really
not talking
scrambled,
starting.
we're done
Yeah.
with that. The same goes for Sam Darnold, who's sitting behind him in the lineup at this point. I think you're trying to convince a team to bring you in as a backup, and I do think he would definitely get a backup job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, he would. I mean, so
It's not just about the skill with Baker.
Fair.
it isn't. But if you're the backup and you're not the one going to the podium weekly, I think you remove a lot of that nonsense that you're referring to out of the mist.
This is the transition year where he's having to get used to where he is in the league, that he was healthy and watching P.J. Walker play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will change his mindset somewhat, and he'll have to be realistic. Kind of like Cam Newton went through the process just thinking Panthers quarterbacks of like, okay, this is going to be a different part of my career. He's still young, and there's a lot of teams that loved him coming out, so he's going to get backup opportunities. But I agree with you. He needs to look better.
I do think some of the reason that they stuck with PJ, I mean, the run game was great with him just sort of throwing the ball a lot less, was that Baker's escalators in his contract.
Right.
I think that's
I
part
think
of it. just
P.J.
part of
Walker,
it. I
and
think
P.J.
Baker
Walker,
knows
to be
that.
clear, would almost certainly still be starting if he wasn't
Yeah, I think
injured.
Wilkes was ready to roll with him. And then Baker's hadn't lost the argument to be the starter.
In injury news, other injury news, Rap Sheet reports that Zach Ertz is done for the year. The tight end has a knee injury, so he is most likely not going to be seen again. We'll see if his time with Arizona is over. Shaq Leonard, the Colts linebacker, who's been banged up, I feel like all the time the last couple of years, but this back issue is leading to surgery, and his time in 2022 is done on the field. Also, Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert will miss extended time with a shoulder injury. You saw it on a big hit he took on Monday Night Football, the first loss of the season for the Eagles. Check out Gregg Rosenthal and the man they call Four Verticals or Four Verts breaking down that Monday Night Football game, certainly a memorable one. So Goddard missing extended time, they think.
He didn't get hurt on the face mask play, right?
Yeah, that's what he was lying down
my God,
after.
that's right.
That was an absurd.
So much happened in that game that I forget that you were so wrapped up in the call that's a costly injury for them, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be season ending. Might go on IR though. I find like extended time has become code for IR. Just they haven't done the official transaction.
Are you guys okay with Olzeuser, Tugboat, Jesus keeping the Eagles atop the power rankings? Do you think they should have dropped for that?
Of course, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't take too much away from last night's game.
Okay is that a crazy opinion? If I was doing a power rankings, I would probably put the Chiefs first.
Okay.
But I probably would have the Eagles
not the
second.
no.
So,
the number one.
It's your
to
power rankings.
Dan Hanzus power rankings today.
I think you could make an argument for any of the top four, or at least who I'm guessing are the top four.
Yeah, I don't think like last night was like the antidote to stopping Philly the rest of the season on any level.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little funky, weird island game that happens.
Division
game, yeah.
Probably should have won. They kind of got ripped off a little bit, too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that Brandon Graham play. Well, check out the Monday night recap.
I mean, that Washington, though, played well. Give Taylor his flowers.
I mean, you call Taylor Heineke the worst quarterback in the league.
I
don't see that. Just because there's so many other terrible quarterbacks right now.
Without a doubt, not only his best game of the year, I would say his best game since that playoff game.
When he popped up and celebrated
he played really well.
The Brandon Graham penalty, it was one of the more unintentionally funny moments of the season.
It was great.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too, like most of the season will wash away from your mind, but I think a couple of years from now we will actually remember Taylor Heineke celebrating.
I loved it. All right, let's take a break and bring in our guest.
Like chili and cheese on some spaghetti noodles, baby. Change his name to Shakira, man. Wherever. That guy's ready to play some football. They're feisty. They're salty. How did he get that thing through there? Like trying to fit a camel in a matchbox, Kevin. Look at this window. Like Zyrtec, like Prilosec. Ask your doctor about Skowronek. Side effects may include catches in the flat, gains of 8 yards. I mean, Shelton's clearing out defenders faster than a teenager clears his search history on his web browser. Holy smokes.
I mean, you put them all next to each other, they're even better. Welcome back. One of the joys of this NFL season for us, other than Jonathan Vilma using the Lord's name in vain once again in the booth, is this man, our guest today, former NFL quarterback, USC legend turned color man for Fox, Mark Sanchez. What is up, Mark?
Oh, guys, I'm doing great. Thanks. I need that clip, actually. That was pretty good when you put them back to back like that.
Well,
that's pretty funny.
Let's start because it's become on the show. We say Sundays with Sanchez, and let's play the latest clip. And all these different turns of phrase really stand out to us. Let's play one from Sunday's game between the Bears and Lions when Justin Fields was going off.
It looks effortless when he's running and he just separates from defenders. I mean, shoot, forget separation. Those things look like a divorce.
So the question that we had starting in week one, Mark, because this has been on our radar for a long time, is does Sanchez have a joke writer? Now, he grew up in Southern California. He's got Hollywood ties.
Come on now.
Is this from Sanchez or somebody helping him with his material?
No, these are I have 2 older brothers, and my dad are they have these silly phrases. My dad's had them forever. I find myself using them now that I'm a dad, and my comedy just went off a cliff. As soon as you become a father, it just totally ends. And so stuff like he dropped him like a bad habit, or hit him like a Mack truck, or whatever. Any of these kind of sayings and phrases I've heard for a while. Some of them I'll peruse. I'll listen to a lot of comedy specials, and you kind of piece together a couple different routines and stuff. But I like to go into a game with maybe 1 or 2, and if the situation, makes sense without trying to force something, great. But a lot of them come up, just kind of on the spot or in the weekend, thinking about, the chili on the noodles. It's obviously Cincinnati native thing. I had one for Seattle that I've been saving. But last week I told you right before we came on, I kind of clammed up, and I'm disappointed because the run game for the Lions, I was going to drop a Leo DiCaprio Revenant line. saying, they're getting up inside that bear and that bear defense like Leo DiCaprio in The Revenant. You know what I'm saying? Curling up inside there, getting physical. And so I thought it was a good one. And, I'm getting heat from Kugler. And we had a new producer on the deal because our producer was in Munich. And so we're kind of like workshopping it. And, if we do it that long and it takes that long in a conversation, it's out. And I feel like I'm forcing, square peg, round hole. So, but I feel like I left an opportunity out on the field. It's not just the players and coaches. Sometimes the color
you got to use it, though.
Up.
And the listeners of the Around the NFL podcast, when you do the Bears again at some point and you use it, it'll be a little wink to all of our listeners.
Yeah, and by the way, just since we're on the topic and you're telling us your process a little bit, I think the teenager clear the search history one is your Bohemian Rhapsody. I think that is your all-time classic. When you said that, and I know that got picked up on Twitter, not just by us. Like, does the producer get in your ear and say, "Hey, what was that?" Or it was like, "Oh, that was amazing." Do you get any pushback for any of your?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I heard the talk back. They were all laughing. They said, basically the higher ups at Fox and any, national broadcasting network. They're like, we don't want to major in internet porn jokes or references, It's probably not like what we're here for. But at the same time, it was well timed. It fit the situation. It was really funny. But my defense was, listen, Marcus Mariota fell down and then got up, completed a pass, and I think it was like a 2-point conversion or a touchdown in that game. And I said, geez, I've heard the Philly special. I've heard this, that, or the other, but that was the Lazarus special. He brought that thing back to life, And so I said, listen, I did the biblical side. I did the internet porn side. I got a wide range here.
You're diverse.
Find you a guy who can do both,
Very nice.
I am looking at the newspapers behind you, Mark, and you have some setup from the New York Post and the Daily News back when you were owning that town. I was living in Manhattan when you were drafted and throughout your time with the Jets. I'm sitting next to a big-time Jets fan here, Dan. I don't know if you know that, and I'm sure we would have gotten to that, but you were like. It was a big thing, the Mark Sanchez Jets period, and I think back to that days, and I think about this NFL season, and I think Geno Smith actually has a connection to those days, Mark, that he was there in your final year, and I'm just curious watching him, and you've done one of his games, at least one of them. Are you surprised? Like, what are you thinking, and what was your experience with him back then?
Well, absolutely. I had so many questions for him because I was fortunate enough to call one of his games, and I know what Pete can do for your confidence, for the mental game in between your ears. And that sometimes is more important. That 8 to 10 inches, depending on your hat size, in between your ears is more important at times than that actual football field. And mastering that and getting yourself in a position where you're jumping out of your skin on game day to go play. And you're confident in your abilities. The way we're watching him throw on the run and flip his hips, and you could tell he's really worked his mechanical side. He looks so much better physically. The definition in his arms. I said it on air, and I said it to him in the Zoom, so I'm not like giving away anything. But when he came in as a rookie, he still had like a little bit of that like skinny fat, like baby fat, kind of like doughy body a little bit. And I mean, now it looks like freaking challah bread on this freaking deltoid right there. Like, damn, dude, what's going on here? And I said, total makeover quarterback edition. And it's because of the work he put in. And the first thing he said to me right after he went and just, went on and on about how great Coach Carroll's been for him. But he goes, dude, I've had all this time. I've been in the weight room and I've been in the film room. That's it. He's like, and I've just been working my butt off, and I got to see Phillip Rivers. I got to see Eli Manning. I got to see Russell Wilson do it for a long time. And I knew that at some point, and he said before this season, he's like, I'm taking somebody's job. That's what he said to us. I'm taking somebody's job. I don't care who it is. I don't care where it is. He didn't know it was going to be Russ. He didn't know Russ was going to get shipped off, but that was his mentality. Like, I'm going to get back. This is the year it's going to happen. And it's really all come to fruition. And he really credited Coach Carroll. He credited that team. And the way they're playing is exactly the way Coach Carroll can prepare a team. And, I mean, Every time we went out on the field at SC, felt like we were the 85 Bears, man. Like the other team didn't have a chance. Like we were going to just roll everybody. And that's what he does for your confidence. He's a psych major from the University of Pacific, man. He knows how to get inside your brain and get you motivated. And he's done a beautiful job. I know they dropped one in Germany, but they're still playing well.
I think you do a great job of, painting the character, telling the story, and that's really what your job is. And, through the years, we've all been watching football for decades. I can't think of the laundry list of ex-quarterbacks that have come in to become color commentators, and you find out a year or two in, even though they have all this information, their ability to characterize the game, to describe the game, to give it to the fan in a way that teaches them is not everyone's skill. I see in you an enthusiasm that sort of has a little bit of Tony Romo to it, and you do a nice job just communicating what's happening on the field. Like, how did you know, when did you know you wanted to do this, and how did you get capable at it so quickly? It's a lot harder than people realize.
Well, I think people have to realize that you do get to see the play 4 times. Right. And if you play for as long as I play, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying if you played for the amount of time I played, that Tony played, that Troy Aikman played, you see the live game, either you have a clicker and you immediately rewind the all 22 from the sideline shot, and then I have a delay camera from the high end zone, or sometimes sky cam that's cut slot to slot. Right. So I essentially see the play 4 times, once live, once in reverse, once again on all 22, and then once again from the end zone. So to me, as a competitor and the jerk I can be at times with myself and how I get competitive. I'm like, if I don't know how to diagnose the play after 4 times, like get your ass out of the booth. You don't belong here. Number one. So schematically, what's the purpose of that play? I have a pretty good idea of where we're going. Then everything else is how much I love this game, how much I put into it, how much I prepare, and I have a great team around me. Kevin Kugler's like freaking John Stockton, man, just sets me up consistently, and he's so steady. I thought, his coming out party really were those 2 London games. My man was on fire and just nails the whole broadcast. In between, I wish there was a camera on us at times, because I'll hit the cough button. And I'm looking at Kevin, and I'm, dropping an F-bomb. Like, are you effing kidding me? Let's go. I'm fired up because I know what those QBs are going through. And every time the ball leaves your index finger, right? That's the last finger to touch the damn ball. It's like the hopes and dreams and aspirations and wishes and everything in that entire franchise is spiraling through the air. You know what I mean? Based on your decision, what you saw, your footwork, all your preparation, everything. And so I'm hanging on those as a fan, as a former player, and now a broadcaster. And so I try and get that through the microphone and get it to people. I think hopefully it's fun, and hopefully people enjoy it.
It's an awesome answer, and really you've been doing an amazing job. But before we let you go, and Gregg had mentioned I'm a Jets fan, so please humor me as I hit the rewind button back to your playing days. I'm going to set the stage here, Mark.
Oh, dear.
2010. No, we're not talking Snoopy Bowl. Don't worry. 2010 AFC Championship game. Jets trail Steelers 24-19. 2 minutes on the clock. Pittsburgh has 3rd and 6. New York out of timeouts. Big Ben rolls right, finds a young receiver named Antonio Brown for the first down. Game over. Rex throws down his headset. The Jets were down 24-3 in the half of that game before you, Mark Sanchez, got scorching hot in the second half. And I maintain that if Mark Sanchez, this Mark Sanchez on our show right now, gets the ball back one more time, the Jets go to the Super Bowl, and history is forever altered for this star-crossed franchise. I want to know if you ever think about that 3rd and 6, because Mark Sanchez, I think about it all the time.
So as an offensive player, I don't think about the 3rd and 6. I think about the goal line stand.
Yep.
I think about the sack fumble before halftime, where in hindsight, I mean, what were we really trying to get out of that drive? We could have handed it off, and I think we were just trying to bite off more than we could chew. We just got our ass handed to us that first half, and that's okay. Even when you admit it, boom, get to the truth of it and move on, because you got 10 to 15 minutes at halftime to really figure it out, get your second half plan together. So those two stick out a little more to me. It feels like that game you run out of time, you don't lose, and that's such a cop out and whatever, but that's like how competitive you are about those things. Because yes, when I do think about them, oh buddy, it stinks. And that was
we've heard that exact sequence on this show many times from Dan. The Antonio Brown play. Well, just think of happier memories. Think of Santonio Holmes and Sean Green beating my Patriots the week before, and yourself, of course.
Man, that was fun too.
Yes, it was. I'm 42 years old, Mark, and that is the highlight of my fandom in my life, is you going to Foxborough and taking out the 14-2 Belichick's. But that's the past. The future and the present is now. Mark Sanchez, a rising star in the booth, and we thank you for taking some time and chopping it up with us. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's do it again, guys.
Let's talk about the other guys. Let's talk about the announcers that most of us here, when you're following your own team, it's not always these big spotlight announcers, because I want to start with, we're talking about Sanchez and what a great job Kugler does setting him up. Another team I like that's, I think, unsung, because I think Sanchez and Kugler are unsung at this point. I know that we're pumping them up, but they deserve more love as a team on the rise. And CBS, I love. I've always liked Ian Eagle going back to his days at WFAN. But this is a colleague of ours, but I think Charles Davis gets slept on big time. When Eagle and Charles Davis are on a call together with Evan Washburn, who's excellent downstairs, that is a game that is in good hands. So if I think my rising star is Kugler Sanchez, I think on the CBS side, the team I feel most comfortable with outside of the big names, what was their name? It wasn't Bird and the Beard. It used to be back in the day with Eagle.
Bird in the Beak?
Bird in the Beak, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Eagle, Davis.
I'm totally with you, because not to go off on a tangent, but Wes and I were huge Ian Eagle fans and would walk around crowded taverns asking groups of people if they thought that Ian Eagle was underrated, and people didn't know what we were talking about. But Charles Davis, I think, is not a hot take guy. I think he's just extremely knowledgeable, and we know him initially as a draft nick. He understands where all these players came from. He's a great communicator, and I think it's just like what Sanchez talked about. Ian Eagle is an excellent table setter, and Charles Davis knows what to do with it. And Washburn, I think the sideline guy matters, and Washburn's excellent.
Ian Eagle adds a lot, though, too. He has his own little flares, and he makes a moment feel bigger. That's why they're number 2. One thing with this exercise, looking at the rankings, I kind of thought was like, all the rankings seem about right. I'm really glad they made.
In terms of who's the A team, the
right.
B team.
Because Ian Eagle and Charles Davis are getting a playoff game. They're not that under the radar anymore. They got that bump, I think, last year, and they're like a great. I'm totally with you. He's so prepared, and the two of them together are a joy to listen to. And Olsen was kind of in that spot last year as the number 2 team,
right,
and they bumped him up. And you learn so much. Like Olsen and Charles Davis maybe don't have like the humor that a Sanchez or even a Romo have, but they're still like.
How about
really
Sanchez says,
enjoyable.
I watch comedy specials and take notes.
That
is incredible.
I think he's leaning into his personality, and what I like about Charles Davis is
he also knows it's dad humor.
A lot of these guys, when they try to be funny and they're not naturally humorous, it is a massive whiff, and it's a tough listen.
That's a great Damashekism. He's always been known to say, like, nobody that everyone thinks they're funny. Everyone thinks there's a little bit of them that's funny, and that comes out. But a lot of people are not funny, and that's when you get hit with like groaners.
Right, it's the one thing that everyone believes that they have. And I always remember hearing Cynthia Freeland's response, because she was there once. She's like, I don't think I'm funny. I've never done it.
There's always an outlier.
Okay. I was like, okay.
In the data. And by the way, the reason I like Evan Washburn, other than him being really good at the job, imagine like a well-adjusted Patrick Bateman on your sideline as the guy on the field.
Sure.
Like he's like tremendously put together. It was his birthday earlier in the season. They brought a cake down to him, like happy birthday, Evan Washburn. And you could tell he doesn't ingest a calorie that has any level of sugar.
No, the cake was taken right away.
His body rejects it, so he did like a little like lick of it, and it was like, wow, he's going to punish himself for that. He's going to do 7,000 crunches when he gets home.
A
in white
well-adjusted
boxers.
Patrick Bateman.
there's a
That's
lot-
not Patrick
yeah.
Bateman at
It
that
was-
point.
it
That's
was
80% of Patrick Bateman not existing.
And it was the bird and the beard. That was the previous team of Eagle and Dan Fouts, who's no longer
Oh, right, Fouts, yeah.
I think
around.
the only other under the radar group, it's not that under the radar for us that I always like, is Kenny Albert and Vilma. And so I think Fox overall is deeper. If we had 45 minutes with Sanchez, I would have asked an uncomfortable question whether there's a rivalry and him and Vilma are jostling elbows.
We don't have
as,
to
like, the
always
next-
ask uncomfortable questions when our guests come on.
That's like for the
Yeah.
second
Dave
time
Singer in the
that they're
talent
on.
booking department needs us to be.
No.
We need to trust. He
That's
needs
not
to
a
trust
goofy
us.
question. I
Yeah.
think he played against Jonathan Vilma, and I'm sure he's competitive, and Jonathan Vilma, I'm sure, is competitive too. And they're teammates ultimately at Fox, and I'm sure they've had that sort of conversation. They are they're great too, because Jonathan Vilma has the defensive perspective, and he brings a ton of energy. And Kenny Albert, to me, is
I like
great
Albert. He's
and
good.
very
Is that
distinctive.
Marv's brother? It's Marv's brother, right?
It's his son.
Kenny's Marv's son.
I will check that, but I believe
Yeah,
it's his
Marv
son.
Albert's like
Marv
in his
Albert
80s there,
is
yeah.
not of,
There's no way they're the
brother
same
age to
age.
No
Kenny
one knows
Albert.
Kenny Albert's true age either.
I mean, Kenny Albert has adult children
He is.
himself.
He's the
so,
son of
yeah.
legendary NBA sportscaster.
He's a
Marv
good
Albert.
straight man, just like Marv Albert was. I mean, he does a nice job with Vilman. It's again, it's
I was
just, it's
confusing
the-
it with Steve Albert.
Sure.
He's
That
got
was
that
Marv's
voice,
brother.
though, too. And he has little wry jokes. He's kind of like an Iron Eagle as well. And it's good to have the different perspectives. Like Gregg Olsen is amazing at route combinations because he's a receiver. And it's good to have non-quarterbacks, I think, in the booth sometimes. And Vilma is very good, unsurprisingly, on defensive play and, like, off-ball linebacker play. And you just, like, don't get that. And so if you can teach me a little something and you're having fun doing it, like he clearly is, I'm a big fan.
Do you think it's cheating that I guess they're the number one team, but Burkhardt and Olsen get Aaron Andrews and Tom Rinaldi on the sidelines?
I think they're. I mean,
It's a bit of a cheat code. Shouldn't you just get the one sideline reporter?
I think it's you're getting the games in theory where both teams matter so much.
I mean, that happened on Thursday Night Football for years for Troy, or at least with the Fox crew for the last couple of years. They would have Christina Pink there, and Troy and Joe. Do we get two on Monday Night Football these days? I don't know.
That's a good question. Who do they throw it downstairs to?
Lisa
Salters.
I
Yeah.
think she's solo. She's solo.
It's not an easy job, by the way. You gotta chase the PR guys down.
Tell us more.
Well, I talked to Peter Schrager, my friend, for that article about his work as a sideline guy.
Schragbom has worked on
You've
the
gotten a
bunch
lot.
of them.
You've gotten so much material out of all your good long forms. I think it's time to do another.
It's
like
time.
just because you're going to end up reusing it over.
Time for
and
me to do
over.
one?
Yeah.
You're a wonderful scribe, Mark. You have a way with words. You've obviously created incredible content for the digital side in the past. I think it's more
The Belichick
time to share
Chronicles.
your
I got a
your
lot
gift.
going on right now. I don't have time to write a long form.
All right. Fair enough.
I think we're missing someone very important in this mix.
Who?
I think Kevin Harlan is a word spinner and one of the great
thank you.
poets. And I mean, Trent Green, maybe I kind of wonder if you paired Harlan with someone entirely different, I wonder what would happen there. It's not personal to Trent Green. I think that Harlan is sort of unmatched at what he does. There's no one like Kevin Harlan.
I'm just thinking because we've done this exercise in some form in a while, and like it always circles back to me or someone kind of half burying Trent Green.
I'm not. I don't intend to do that. I think he's
That's what
good at what he does. I just think Kevin Harlan is who do you put with Kevin Harlan?
There hasn't been a lot of
excellent.
turnover. I haven't seen those like deep teams. This season, there's not a lot
We
of
have some Harlan?
fresh blood.
He's walking. He's walking to the 3. He's at the 2.
The cat is on the field.
CDW red zone. CDW people who get it now. A police
Plug.
state troopers come on the field, and the cat runs into the end zone. That is a touchdown.
Oh, he's also. Do we have the guy who's drunk by any chance?
He was a guest on this show too.
He was.
Great.
Harlan
guest.
was a great sport as well.
You remember what he told us? That to keep his passion and love of the game alive, that in his hotel room before kickoff, he blasts NFL Films music on loop.
I love it. That's
He's
the
that guy.
passion.
Yeah.
You can't hide the passion. All right. Let's take a break and then hit the Thursday Night Football game.
Ooh.
Good app. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. All right, let's do it. It's week 11, and it starts with a great game. The Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans just know how to win games. That was pretty good Berman.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Am I turning into Chris Berman?
Slowly but surely.
Got the custom suit. You got
Rumbling and stumbling. Yes, the Tennessee Titans travel to Lambeau Field to face the Packers. And we all know the last time a supposed conference contender went to Green Bay, they went home with the loss, the Cowboys on Sunday. So now in a short week, Tennessee takes on the Packers. And Gregg, this is a Tennessee team that probably could have – they're a little annoyed right now. I'm sure it's like we just barely got Tannehill back on the field. He did a nice job for us, got a W, was limping on the field, and now we got to turn around and play 4 days later. So he's probably still going to be somewhat limited. But I guess it's the story of this game might be that defense and whether it could shut down Aaron Rodgers coming off a really good game with that running game that's revitalized.
Right. I'm done doubting the Titans based on who is going to play or how many snaps they've played. For instance,
the quarterback's a little different to me, but okay.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But they do have Tannehill. And
Yes.
as you mentioned on the Sunday night recap, I thought he played well, especially the last 2.5 quarters of that game. Like, he makes such a difference.
From
but
that final possession of the first half on, I agree with you.
Right. Bud Dupree, we don't know if he's going to play as of taping. Jeffrey Simmons, who's their best defensive player, we don't know if he's going to tape. And yet they had 40 pressures on Russell Wilson. I think they had like 20 alone between like guys you never even heard of. DeMarcus Walker in that game. Mario Edwards is going crazy. They were. I always say it. They really do remind me more of the old Patriots than any team that's ever
Vrabel effect.
like came from that team. And that's like when you're missing your stars, like guys you don't know just step in and they're great. So I expect the defense to give them a lot of problems, and I expect like Tennessee to make this a fun, close game. I'm not quite buying that Green Bay is ready to just take off and soar. That felt like Mike McCarthy's coming to town. The Cowboys are coming to town. We're all fired up. We had a great comeback performance. Show it to me again before I really believe this is going to be consistent.
Yeah, I want to see it again. I mean, I think it was a great sign to have someone step up as a wide receiver for Green Bay and to have that narrative play out. Is it there week to week? I don't know. I mean, the Titans' defense, I just can't stop thinking about what they did to the Chiefs. I know that was a bitter loss, but that's the only game where they allowed even 20 points dating back to week 4. I mean, their defense is legit. You said it doesn't matter who's in or out of the lineup. There are a lot of injuries right now, but they're a super resilient team, and I really like the matchup of Derrick Henry getting back on track after tough Broncos defense. The Green Bay defense is the 30th run defense in DVOA. They have been stormed on week after week outside of that one little strange aberration contest with the Bucs, where the Bucs ran for 34 yards because they didn't even try to run. Everyone else has galloped on Green Bay at will.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the key to the game right there. Because if Derrick Henry does one of his, like Aaron Rodgers is always great in prime time and Thursday Night Football, I think has 18 touchdowns, 1 interception, 7-2 lifetime. But we've seen a lot of huge Derrick Henry games as well on this type of stage. And if he does his thing, I think with the Packers, it's so what's been missing from the Packers offense. Like, yes, they've not been as reliant on the running game as perhaps they should be, but also what happened with Christian Watson in that game, that's it. Like, they've needed someone to step up. And I think it is maybe asking a lot after the guy did nothing for 2 months now to just like lock him in. Our Christian Watson, he's the guy we can count on. But that's kind of what the Packers need. They need him or someone to make those big plays, and when they don't, they're stuck in mud. And when Rodgers has someone to work with, they can fly.
It's crazy how reliant, though, they are on the run to set up those big plays. I mean, Rodgers, even in that comeback, there was I read how 28-14 down, the play calling the rest of the way was something like 15 or 16 runs and 11 passes. And that was increasing the amount of passes that he had. So even when they were trailing, they stuck to it, and I think they will stick to it. I think the Titans are good defending the run. Tell me if I'm wrong or not. But I still would rather run on the Titans than try to throw. I know they're banged up in the back end. Christian Fulton, we don't know if he's going to play. But they always find a way to get free rushers with stunts and hit quarterbacks, like no matter who's back there.
Yeah, the Titans' run defense after the first 2 weeks of the season
still first. Wow.
was bad, but now they have really stepped it up. And Jeffrey Simmons said on Tuesday that he feels a lot better. He's hopeful that he can play on Thursday. He feels a lot better than he did last week, so that would be huge for the Titans' middle of the defensive front. I think whoever stops the run better in this game is the team that's going to win, because
that should be the Titans.
Both of these teams are going to stick to the run, I think, and whoever's in
Is he gonna?
more third and
Is he going to do it?
Is he going to do
I
it?
think he should.
Does he actually like his team?
Let's go.
I'm not going to do it. The reason is I haven't really looked at the rest of the slate, and I don't want to do what Dan.
Yes,
I
do
don't
not
want to make
make
a
I mean,
mistake.
you could always change it by Thursday.
You can dive into it now and then alter
we don't
your-
like doing
your
the
pick.
change thing.
That's true.
I like him playing this that way.
Okay. They could use fresh bodies, too, because I just did some math. I believe they had 91 snaps against the Chiefs on defense, and then 73, which is a huge number against Denver, too. That's 164 snaps in 2 weeks. That's essentially 3 games, and now they have a short week. So I know they're tough, but on defense especially, they could use a game where the Tennessee offense isn't going 3 and out for a quarter and a half like
definitely.
they were a week ago.
The Packers also coming off an overtime game, which is obviously a lot of extra snaps, with a big emotional win to snap a 5-game losing streak. This is like a setup for both teams to have potential letdowns with a lot of emotional.
Does it?
You're playing the.
Is he going to do it?
Green Bay's playing the Eagles next week. Like, I mean, they're every week is essentially their season.
This
on
is
the
a
line.
must-have game for
Yeah.
Green Bay, I think. Or at least they got to split one of these 2 games. Is it strange to you, Justin, that the Tennessee Titans are playing on a Thursday night and it's not against the Colts or the Jaguars for the first time since 1996?
That is
Not true. They stopped that stupid series in like 2018. I think was the last Titans.
I feel like it's been a lot of like Derrick Henry running over a
Jacksonville.
shitty
Some-
AFC South team for the last 12 years.
Do you worry about
My
the Titans,
word.
like coming from placid little Nashville into nighttime Green Bay weather?
You've been to Nashville recently?
It's in the Midwest.
The last time the Titans played at Lambeau in primetime was 2 years ago on Sunday Night Football, and they lost 40-14.
All right,
Ooh.
so that's a different Packers team.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember that game. That
Yeah.
was ugly.
It was ugly.
Can I ask a Titans question? How come they don't build a little more of the offense out of my guy? Yes, I'm submitting for proposal
Let me get
here.
the
Whatever. I don't know
paperwork
how
out.
it works. Chig Okonkwo. Whenever
Got
they
it.
give Okonkwo the ball, I
Chig.
get excited. I think that is
Okonkwo.
Jonnu Smith, who I used to love in Tennessee. It's like a juiced-up Jonnu Smith. Build the whole plane out of Okonkwo.
He's averaging 20.1 yards per catch, and he
doing right.
he leads the
21 per
Titans.
catch.
He leads the
Pretty
Titans
good.
in total yards after catch, despite being like 6th in receptions or something, maybe even worse than that.
He's George Kittle.
He
I
is,
don't know who he is.
He is dynamic with the ball in his hands, and they need to get it to him more.
They don't
I
have a
agree.
receiver over 300 yards. It's week 10. They don't have anyone on pace for more than 505 yards.
That
Check
A.J.
this.
Brown
Robert
trade
Woods.
worked.
I am also out of the Thursday Night Football lock business, but the increasingly dumb decision to fork the Green Bay Packers in mid-November is going to look even worse.
You
Thursday
can't
night.
play both sides of this fence. It's ridiculous.
Yes, I
You
can.
did fork them.
I can.
Or it's going to look
You
great.
could have locked them up last
No.
week. You felt so confident.
No. You know why? You know why I can? Because I went on record before the Packers played another game. I'm not saying I bear
Right,
responsibility
I'm just saying
for
then
the fork,
either way you're right. We would have forgotten about that.
but I'm telling you they're going to win again. And
okay.
within 10 days, we're going to be like,
Why did you agree
woof.
to the lock though? Because it needed to be unanimous.
I don't
and
know.
You join
I
arm
think I
in
felt
arm with
pressured.
us.
No, that was
I think
one
I
that
felt
we
pressured.
just-
I don't think you'd give in to
felt-
pressure from.
That
I
was
felt
one that
that
just
in
like
that
kind of
case-
went easy.
In that case, I
In that
did feel.
case.
I was
As
on the
if-
fence about it too. I don't remember pressuring you.
I think it was Sessler. I think Mark's Packers hate infected me. It went into my bloodstream.
The
Well,
NFC.
then I have more power than I realized.
The NFC
over
is
your-
tricky though. Like the good vibes last until Thursday night if you're not correct. If they're 4-7, like these good vibes did not last
It was
long.
like a black goo that was going across the glass, and then it just like seeped in under my fingernails. It's like,
That black goo does not come from me.
You got to be worried though. You've seen this story before. In fact, Aaron Rodgers authored this
That's a
story
drop.
before.
He authored this story before.
In the relax season, yes,
Oh,
where
right.
they were
Well,
under
I
500.
feel like they've
and
done
then
this
they went
6
on a run.
times.
shouldn't have done it.
It's not going to be the case every time.
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it because of the defense.
All right, so that's it.
Green Bay timeout.
Okay.
We are not on a tugboat timeout of the Packers at this stage. We're all in fact. So that's it. Thank you to Mark Sanchez. How fun was that?
It's great.
Thank you for everybody for listening and watching, and we will be back on Thursday with a full preview of all the Week 11 games to come. Till then, heed the call.